You are in the exact right place at the exact right time if you are an employee, a manager, a leader, a business owner, or a freelancer, and you really need to have structure and ultra easy dashboards and one-click access to see everything that's going on in the business. This software tracks employee time, overtime, paid time off. We can build payroll and client invoices instantly. We manage projects. We can track hours via desktop, mobile, kiosk, lots of different options. Everything is connected. There's no double entry. We've got dashboards with KPIs to show progress to goals. We can keep track of all of our HR details, performance reviews. Everything copies over to Excel or Google Sheets if there's the event that you want to work outside of the system. There's an SOP library so that employees always have access to exactly what their job instructions are for the day. There's scheduling so employees can see where they need to be at what time. There's a whole bunch of features. Everything that you could need to run a business is right here. So let's get started with the demo. All right, let's get started with the start a free trial. So we're going to click the button and we're going to walk through this as though we are a new customer. So you can enter your name. I am just going to enter in any email because I've used all mine so far, but for you, you definitely want to make sure it's a real email because you want to make sure you're getting all communications, and if you have to reset your password, that is exactly how you are going to be able to do it, is by clicking Forgot Password once you have your account. So I'm going to hit start my free trial. This is super ultra important. Make sure when you log into your account that you, for the very first time, that you see this. So before you begin, you want to go to settings in the upper right and make sure you choose a company time zone and overtime rules. I can't tell you how many times I hear that things aren't working, and it's because the overtime rules aren't set. So you will never get an overtime balance or value if you don't do that first. So let's click on settings at the top. Note your company PIN here. Your employees are going to need to know this as part of their sign-in, and then you will need it if you ever need support. So time zone here, I'm going to go with Eastern time, and overtime rule here, you can do none or you can do weekly, daily. This software is always evolving and getting more and more features, and so I do expect by Q2 that the California daily and weekly will be in here, but for right now, you've got overtime, weekly, and 8 hours, which is what almost every company needs. So I'm gonna click daily, and while we're in here, let's do GPS, make sure we've got that on. If you don't wanna have it on, totally optional. This only records at punch time, so I wanna make sure it's on for the demo purpose, but this does not track employees throughout the day. Make sure that is very clear. It does state that on the employee page as well, just so it's crystal clear. Project templates, we'll come back to this. Make sure you hit save your settings. I'm gonna go back to my time clock here. And then if I go to, want to do anything, like let's say we wanna log in as our employee, first you have to set employees up. So what we're gonna do is go here to manage people, and I could view all my employees. You can search here when you have a bunch of them in here, but for right now, let's just say we're gonna name this employee 1000, and we'll call this person, let's call it a real name. And then password, I always do 1111 for these test accounts just to make it ultra easy. So if you are testing it out, I recommend you keep it super simple, and then hit employee. And now you can see your employees here. This is where you reset password. You reset the password as the admin, and then you give it to your employee. You can deactivate or activate, and then you could also delete permanently. So if you deactivate and activate, that is what's going to control their ability to log in, and of course delete would as well. But if you are just trying to short term, make sure someone's not logging in, deactivate works. If you want to just completely have them gone out of the system, then you might want to press delete. So, all right, this looks pretty good. Just since we're here, let's go to view all employees. So now we've got our employee here, and we've got our hire date, birth date, all those types of HR details. You can put in a birthday by using the date picker. If you happen to, have an employee that starts on the 30th, it will highlight them when you are actually on the 30th so that you know, like, oh, hey, looking at this, I've got a bunch of anniversaries today, birthdays, whatever it might be. And then you can enter in all their other information, but let's set up PTO while we're here. So I want to go through this demo and show you exactly how stuff works. So what we want to do is get a few things set up right out of the gate so that you can see how the features work. So you could choose to either assign annual hours, or you can accrue the hours. So if you accrue the hours, it means for every period that you select here, you're going to gain that number of hours for the employee. And you can choose your start date, Just to make this easy, let's do a fixed amount. And let's say we give Ted 50 for the year. He's a new employee, so he's used 0, and we'll hit save. And now you'll see that his balance over here is 50. So let's go back to our dashboard. And let's also set up a couple of shifts so you can see how it works for the schedule. And so if you go to calendar, this is where you can approve PTO. You can see how many people are working. You can see where they're working. So let's get started here with adding a shift. So today being the 30th, I'm going to add a shift. We've got this placeholder employee here just for some demo purposes, but I'll make sure I get rid of that. And so for this purpose, I am just going to check the box for Ted for all these examples. So let's say I wanted, you know what, actually let's do this. Let's add a holiday a couple days before. So if I wanted to add a holiday, I can choose how many hours I want. Like let's say this happened to be Christmas or something, and I would hit add holiday. You can choose all the employees and then quickly add a holiday. So you can kind of like go through your calendar and scroll through and find all the holidays and just add them quickly that way. And if I go back to admin, you'll see that the holiday was automatically added, and you can see that Ted has 8 hours. And down here in the summary card, you'll start to see the totals add up here, and PTO has holiday in it, so that's where you'll find that. So then let's go back to the calendar, and that was a holiday. Let's go here and add a shift though for today. So let's say that Ted is working, we'll say cleaning, and maybe the location is at headquarters, and you can either pick from the picker here or you can just type times in. So we could do 8 o'clock a.m. to let's say 11 o'clock a.m. and hit save schedule, close, and now you can see that Ted has a shift here. And so just for the ability to see how this works, let's add another shift. So let's just say, we'll just say another job, and maybe you're at Detroit this time. And again, let's do like 1 o'clock. Well, let's do 10 o'clock. So see how you can see the picker here. If you wanted to choose like 3 o'clock, I can't read that. Okay, 3 o'clock p.m. And then we'll tab over here to like 6 o'clock p.m. Type in p.m. and then let's save schedule and close. And so now you've got that Ted has these shifts here. So if you had other employees, these would just fill out here, and then it makes it super easy to see, okay, this is where people are planning to work. This might be where I have some gaps, or I've got people on holiday, people on PTO. So real quick in a second, I'll show you how PTO works here so you can see what that looks like on the screen as well, so you can kind of see what you're working with. So if I go back to admin here, let's see, now we've got our settings, we've got a shift, we've got a holiday here. So let's go back over here to the employee login and attempt to log in now. So I'm going to paste the PIN in here, and then this employee ID was 1000, and we've got our password, and then let's sign in for our very first time. So now you can see here, this is the employee hub, I like to call it, because it is a one-click basically to everything, whether they're going to clock in or whether they were going to see projects, SOPs, whatever it might be. So we are going to show you how projects work. So if you want the employee to clock in under a project, a job, or location, you can type these in, and it's easy, no big deal. Or you can select from the drop downs. So with the project here, let's say I want to add a new project. I'll call this cleaning, and I'm just going to add the project. So now it's in the drop down. If I go over here and I go to the projects, you'll see that cleaning is in the projects. And we'll go back to that with how the project options work. But for now, let's go back to the employee. So they could clock in under cleaning. And if you click this drop down here, you'll see that they have cleaning already. And that's because we chose today as a shift and we assigned it. So if you go here to this icon, you can see that their upcoming shifts are Friday and Saturday. They're cleaning at HQ. They've got another job in Detroit. And here's the times that they need to be there. Super handy. I get a lot of great feedback on this, that it's really great for employees to know exactly where they need to be and what time. So if you close this, and since we're on the day of a shift, we can automatically just choose where we need to be and hit clock in. And you'll see over here on the left on the admin screen that it pops up automatically, and it's ultra quick and easy to just look at this screen and see all the light green for the people who are actively working. If it's white, it's a closed out shift or a holiday, but if it's green, it means they're actively working. So that is clocking in and out in an overview from the employee perspective. But if I go back over to the admin page, and let's say you're in the field and you're like, oh, I need to cancel, or not cancel, but I need to clock the employees out because they are, they're done for the day and they can't get to their phone, or they forgetting to punch is a huge thing. So the admin can come in here and you can use the admin buttons over here to clock people in and out if you wish. Or you can go in and click on the pencil and you can edit the times. Now, my GPS location did show up as well because I did turn that on, and I, in my browser, already have that set to accept that, but your employee will have to accept, if it's on a browser or mobile, that you are asking for the GPS location. So just make sure that's known. If they decline it, you'll see that this little pin is going to be like a kind of a lighter, like grayed out, and that's usually why. Sometimes it can be because the internet's spotty, but generally it's because they probably declined it. So you just want to make sure you give employees the notice ahead of time that that's what you're trying to do, that you've got GPS set up. And so if I go over here now and I click end, you can see that the shift ended and it was only 0.03 hours, but our regular hours are 0.03, and overtime would be 0, of course, because we definitely have not come close to the threshold. So that is how the punch buttons on the admin side work. Those punch buttons are only for like live real time, and you can see the note here, in and out. It's not for editing. If you wanted to edit a punch, you want to click on the pencil and do that. Because those buttons are always going to be real time. So just make sure you know that as well. And so if the employee were to clock back in again, they would need to log out or refresh the page. They can clock in and it went to a new row, if you see here, because we didn't select the job and the location again. So you will start a new row, and which is handy because anytime you're not matching what's on the row, you're going to probably want a new row, a new day essentially, even though it's the same day, but it's treating it like a whole separate shift so that you can organize the times better and where people are at. So anyway, so now we've got our new row. And so, so that is clocking back in again. And I do want to show you that on all the pages, there's going to be a copy button. And what that's going to do is allow you to copy whatever is on the page outside of the system if you needed to work offline, or if you wanted to do some additional analysis, whatever it might be. So for example, if I move this spreadsheet over here and I say copy summary, I'm going to paste that here. The summary is your list of employees with their regular OT, PTO, and total hours. And then if I went to copy time entries, I always get these backwards. Okay, good, I got both of them. So now time entries is the week of, and then you'll see each entry exactly like it is on your screen. So you can see, let's do this here. Let's do a little better formatting. You can see the job location, start, end, and all of that, all the relevant information. So if you wanted to send this over to payroll, if you just want to keep track of it for your own records, that is a great way to do it. Very, very easy. And it works in Excel or Google Sheets or possibly any other spreadsheet, but I geared it towards those. So that, I think, covers those. Adding a day is easy. You can choose a date once, and then once you save, you will need to re-add. Trying to keep the system compliant and making sure that there's not a lot of back and forth and edits. So if you need to edit a row a second time, by the date, you will have to create a new row. So let's say we've got an employee, we could do 1,000 again since that's who we have loaded, and we'll just leave those blank. But you can go in here and just add blanket hours. You could just say this person is 8 hours, and we'll hit save, and there you go. And so you can see here down at the bottom, this is a quick little summary. You can see your regular overtime PTO, your total hours, and then it's going to break it out by each row. So you can quickly see where everyone's at for the week. And it can get, to be a lot if you've got a lot of employees over the course of a week. So these summary cards down here are handy. Then in the bottom right, you've got these dashboard cards to show you the total hours, total PTO, and total overtime. And this is among all employees. So at a really quick glance, you can see how many hours in the various buckets there. Audit log, really handy to have. So you can see when someone clocked in, when someone punched out. Again, very easy. If you want to search this, you can just type in here and it'll filter down. And then if you want to copy that to Excel or Google Sheets, you can do that as well. So let's go back over here to the employee page. So we just showed you how punching works, how the schedule works. Let's do PTO real quick. So if I go to PTO and I want to request time off, let's say I want to be off on the 31st. I'm already working, but let's say we'll just call it sick. Let's say 2 hours. Let's say they got to go to the doctor appointment at some point in the middle of the day. So they hit submit. You'll see this pink bar shows up over here for the admin. So Show My PTO is a one-click, again, dashboard for the employee to see exactly where they're at. So they've got the 8 hours here approved. This is the holiday. So I want to call out here that the holiday hours do not come out of the PTO balance. So make sure you note that difference if you are working with that. Holidays are generally company sponsored, so that is the reason. If you wanted the employee to take PTO for a holiday, you would make sure that they, go through the normal PTO chain. But if you're just going to assign holidays, that's the difference here. So if I go over here now to the admin page, I can either click here to see it on the calendar, or I can just quickly approve. But I'm going to show it to you on the calendar. I like this a lot because it really gives insight into how many employees are off, how many are working, to make it an easier decision as to whether or not it makes sense for Ted to be off. So it's pink right now because it's pending. If I go over here and I say approve, it will turn blue. And so you've got no more pending. You can go back to admin and you'll see that the PTO row shot over here and for his 2 hours. And then again, it will show up in this bottom left corner as 10 hours because holiday and PTO are combined in the PTO hours. And then again, in the bottom right. So you can see how many hours people are actually off for the week. And it will just keep accumulating there as requests come through and get approved. So if you're like, you know what though, I either didn't mean to do it, or if the employee didn't mean to do it, they can go here and go to their list. So Show My PTO has to be clicked. I like that because it's a privacy thing. If someone happens to be, punching in on a computer or something like that in the office. So if they click on it, they can see all their PTO. They can copy their entries out of here, just like we did with the time entries. And if they're like, you know what, I want to cancel it, watch what happens to the screen. So they're going to hit cancel, yes, and then the row gets removed from the admin area. But the great part is that their balance will get refunded. So again, let's refresh the page, Show My PTO, and their balance is back up to 50 hours. So if you were to delete it from the admin page, the employee still has to acknowledge it. And when they hit cancel, like you've both agreed, we're canceling it, that is when the balance gets updated. So those are the basics. Now let's move on to my hours. So my hours here, upon the first click, is going to show that OT regular hours are pending admin approval. And the reason for this is that we don't want admins or employees to see overtime when there's like all kinds of, shifting and punches aren't complete during the week. It just makes it a little bit cleaner to make sure that the admin is signing off on the week before the employee sees it. So if I go over here to the admin page and I click approve the week, what that does is it takes a snapshot and it will send it over to the employee. And then the employee, if we close and reopen, will see that the week has been approved. And then now all of a sudden their regular and overtime fills in. And what's going on here is that we punched in today and we didn't punch out, so we've got 0 hours. You can see your punches in and out here, 0.07 hours. And since we're not even close to 40 hours or 8 hours if it were daily overtime, these aren't going to show overtime at this point. And then work for this day on 128, let me expand this a little bit. You can see was 8 hours. That's the one we manually typed in. And then the holiday shows here as well. So when you come over here now and you look, you can see your work hours, you can see PTO, holiday, your regular and OT split, and then your total hours is still 16.07, but now that it's approved, employees can see their final regular and OT hours. And if you scan through the weeks, you'll see there's no entries here, so this stays put, but if there were entries, this updates. And again, each week has to be approved by the admin. And you can see that the admin approved today at 129 or 119. If the admin didn't, or if an employee punches after that, then, and it doesn't show OT or regular, then the employee knows that the last update was on the 30th at 119. So I'm going to close that. That is also a really handy tool. Again, making sure that transparency and communication is super clear. So now if we get into these buttons here, so we've got projects, we did PTO, SOP Library. These mirror exactly what the admin can see. So let me just go back to the admin screen since I've got it a little bit wider. Let's see here, projects. So we added cleaning earlier. I'm going to show you how to add a project real quick. This works just like it does for the employee, except you get all of the fields here, and employees get the same view. So project name, I'm not feeling real creative today, so we're just gonna call it strategy. We'll just say description of what this is, and you can do an owner if you want. So we'll say it's Ted, let's say it's in progress, it's a low priority, and the due date is, let's say it's tomorrow. Hours logged, let's say he's already worked on this, we'll say 2 hours. And we can say it's public or we can say it's private. If you choose it private, then only the creator and Ted will see it. If you choose public, anyone, so any additional employees you add will be able to see this. Let's hit save. And so now you can see here, you've got your project. This is where you can add tasks. So if you're like, you know what, he needs to do a kickoff of this, we'll call it in progress. The hours are optional, but let's say that would take an hour, and the due date for that, we'll say that's today because it's coming up here. And so you can see how many days you have remaining on different tasks. If it's red, it means that you're getting close. If we push this out a little bit more, you can see how the days change. So again, you can copy your task list to Excel, but let's close it. And so let's say we've got 3 hours logged. You can change the color of these if you want to color code different projects. You can add a section here, so we could say like to do, and then you can move your projects around. You can drag and drop. Here now to our task list. So we have one task in here and it's in progress. If I marked this as complete and closed it, it's going to show that our project is 100% complete. And if you had more tasks, of course, it would base it on the appropriate percentage. But we can change the color back here if we wanted to again. You know, you can change it based on status if you want, or based on type or whatever it might be. And that's how you edit is the pencil. And then this little icon here is for billing. So let me show you how this works. If I click billing, it's gonna bill 3 hours to our admin page for strategy. So if I hit yes, it billed it, and it's going to mark it as a checkbox because hours have been sent. Now, if you go in here and you add more hours to it, let's change this to 5. You can now bill 2. What it's going to do is make sure that you're not billing the same amount of hours again. So it's going to keep adding the delta between today's hour value and the last time you billed. So I'm going to hit no because I just am going to do that once. In the audit log here, you can see if things were recalculated, deleted, and such. So that can be handy as well. And then you've got various filters here. So let's go back here over to admin and see our project. So our project got built and it's 3 hours, and you can go in here to the pencil and edit and change the name. And the one thing to note here with projects is that these are meant for invoices. So if you were going to have an employee work on a project, I recommend adding a line, adding a day here, and typing in the project here, because that's what's going to get captured in their summary cards. If you bill from the project page, it gets captured, but it's not in your hours. So you've got like 2 different systems here. You've got your time clock where everything is coming from employee punches, and then you've got the project page, which is more from billing and invoicing. Might be more of a freelancer type thing, but anyway, either way, all entries will go to the invoice, but if you're looking for the time clock versus the billing, that would be the main difference. So I'm going to deselect all of these, and let's just say I want to bill for this one project. So I'm going to click on the checkbox and I'm going to hit generate invoice. Now you can, just for the time's sake, I'm going to not go through and type all this in, but you know, you can type in like whatever your information is, PO numbers if you wish. This is where you can put in your rate, and let's hit download. And sometimes honestly here, I have to copy and paste this to another tab to get the invoice function to download on some browsers, and I happen to be on the browser that is doing that. So okay, again, I'm going to check the box and I'm going to go to generate invoice, and I'm going to do this again. Let's do INV 001, and then we did 50, so let's download our invoice. So now if I go up here to download and open, you can see I've got this invoice here. I didn't put an employee name, job location, but you could. All you need to do is edit that, and then you can put your from and bill to and all of that, and then you've got your invoice. So it's very, very easy. So, oh, and a logo too. I forgot to mention that. If you want to upload your logo here, you can do that as well, and then that will show up on your invoice. So let's see here. If you don't want to mess with the checkboxes, the individuals, you could just select all, and then everything down here will get added to the invoice. It will group it by employee, but that is an easier way to just generate invoices. So it depends on what you want to use this for. You can use it for, like I said, employee time tracking and use these buttons here, or it's really easy to generate invoices. And so I'm going to say that's everything here. Scrolling here to see your weeks. And let's see here. So I'm going to go back to the employee page. And again, we went through projects, PTO, SOPs, goals, all of that work very similar, where you can add a new SOP. You can fill out all the information. So again, just for time's sake, I'm not going to go through this too much in this general demo, but you can type in, your department. So let's say we're in operations, and maybe we number them like this. And the title could be operations job 1, and you can type in who approved it, and the date might be the same as the published date, and then you can fill all these in. You can choose to delete some of these if you want. So if you don't want responsibilities and steps, you can delete that. You can save it as a template, and then you can choose whether it's public or private, who has access to it, and then let's hit save. And so now when I come over here, I've got operations job 1. This is a template, so I can click that to duplicate it. And you could rename this if you wish, but the nice part about the template function is that it kept the boxes that you removed, and it kept some of your settings already. So you can go in here and, if you wanted to say like operations only has scope and steps or something like that, then you can make that template. So it's just much easier each time you go in to make one. So green is current, due soon, and review due are based on the published dates. So the review due would be within 30 days, due soon, is like past due, and then due soon is within 30 days, and then green is current. So it's really important, usually with SOPs, that they get reviewed in a regular amount of time. So that's what these colors are over here, to make sure that you can see really clearly the ones that are coming due. And then again, if you had more here, you could search and it would filter them out, but let's just test it out with copy so you can see how it filters. And so if you want to delete them, you can close them with the X. If you want to go back in here and make a change to one, you can click it, come in here and say, added this, and you could say what changed. I had to add a note, hit save, and your revision history with your note will be there. I love this for SOPs because it's so difficult to know when something changed if you're just using a spreadsheet or something like that. So very, very handy. But this is the SOP library. Again, one click from the employee. Admin has the same type of function, so that when they clock in, if you've got a list of instructions for their job, they know exactly what to do. So let's go over to goals and KPIs. Again, it works really similarly. Everything just is a click of a button with new, and then you can start creating it. So if this was a department goal, let's say we're in ops again, goal name is, let's say leads, we'll call this sales instead. Description, what makes this a success? The higher number of leads. Just making this really basic. We'll just leave this public for right now and hit save. And so now you've got your goal over here. So what you can start doing is pick your month, let's say January, and I'm going to add the month. And let's say our actual leads were 500 and we got 250. Or our goal, let's say our goal is 1,000. So 50% to goal. And so you're going to start getting the dots on the chart over here. Now again, let's say I'm going to add February, add month, and let's say our actual was 505 and our goal was 1,100. We're at 45.9% to goal. So you can see here that this chart is going to start developing, and we'll hit save, and every edit is saved down here by who did it. And so you can go in as the admin. Now, if I flip over here to goals and KPIs, and you can see that the leads department sales goal, this is where they're at. So this makes it super easy. Employees can track their own personal goals, or they can make them public so that the admin can see it as well, or admins, I should say, so that any leadership in the company can instantly go through and say, okay, we've got marketing, we've got sales, we've got operations, and here's their main goals, and like here's where they're at. And then you've got this really handy visual that everyone can stay on track with, and starts conversations. That's the whole point. It's like we want to track things to see where you're going, make sure the KPIs are aligned, and make sure that everyone is on the same page so that no surprises come up. So I love that function as well. Next is going to be roadmaps. So again, you can set these from either end. So let's go to the admin one this time. So we're going to do a new initiative. So this department, this would be unassigned, but let's call this one sales 2, and we can make Ted the owner. The new initiative could be 2026. And let's say it's public again. This is neat because this is going to be like a Gantt chart. So what we want to do is set our times here. So we can choose days or months. If we choose months, then what we want to do is go in here and say like January 1st through, well, I was going to say we said 12 months, or we said the year. So let's do through December 1st. Generate, and you can see you've got every month here. So now what you can do here is you can say initiative 1, whatever that might be, and you can say the priority status, you can add the task, and you can move these around and decide, you know what, actually that's going to take this amount of time, whatever it might be. These are color coded by priority. So initiative 2 maybe is like high, and you could say it's not started yet. So we're going to add the task. So you can determine, everything that the department has going on or the company. So you can have all these initiatives, and then you can make sure that make it transparent enough where the, privacy level is set to public. So again, employees at any time can go in and see where are the company initiatives at, when are they planned for, so they know what to expect. So that is a big deal, because when you want to motivate employees and get them on board, like they really need to know what to expect. And then especially if these employees are talking to customers, you want them to know exactly where the company is headed. If you're going to develop something big in Q3, then you want to make sure that employees know it's coming so they can talk about it. So you always want to keep things like this up to date, and you can have as many as you want. You could, like I said, have them all listed down here by department, or it could be company-wide. Again, if I go over here to employee, since we made this public, if I go over to roadmaps, I can see new initiative. If this was sales for the year, I could be like, okay, yep, we're on the same page. Like we're following the same thing. We're marching to the same beat. And that's what's key. So let's go back here to the employee hub. Let's go to customer profiles. Now this might not apply to everyone. You might think initially, you might be like, oh, I don't really need that. I argue that you do, because you have to know your customer. That's the whole point of being in business. So you can choose a file here and upload a photo. Again, this is just a general demo, so I don't want to spend too much time on anything in particular. The role of the customer, let's say you've gone through and you've done the interviews. I've got lots of information on my site about customer interviews. And so I highly recommend you check it out. It's in the free tools. And if you go through the process, you interview your customers and you develop your personas, like I said, I've got lots more information on that. These are the people, your target buyer. So like you might have 3 to 6 of these, and you might say, you know what? These are the people who are going to buy our product. They are this type of age, this type of business, this type of education, this type of background. They own these types of businesses. These are their motivations. This is their, what makes them buy. This is what makes them tick. This is what makes them upset. This is what makes them like a product. This is what makes them hate a product. So you want to ask all of these different things. And the end result is that you've got these personas. So you can name them, a lot of times I like to call them like, let's say Bob the Builder. In this case, you want to name with them because you want to be able to keep it top of mind. But you also need to put a word in there that makes it make sense, so it connects it back to your business. So if you were, like a construction company selling construction supplies, you might have a Bob the Builder because you want to picture Bob in your head every time you're determining what types of supplies you should be bringing in. And, it just helps to really make sure you're always gearing what you're producing or what you're buying towards your ideal customer, as opposed to letting your own bias creep in. So like I said, I've got lots of information if you're interested in learning more on this, but this is a really handy tool so that, again, everyone is on the same page with who your customer is. So short description, again, age, demographics, maybe location, depending if that's relevant, and then their goals, their pain points that they have, again, make it public or private. And then this is where you can go in here and add touch points and such. So through the buying funnel, you've got when people become aware of you, when they're considering you, when they actually make the purchase, how you keep them around, and then how you turn them into advocates so that they're giving like word of mouth business to you. And so all along the way, they've got various touch points. So you might have like social media is the very first one. So for example, if they find your construction supply site and if they found it through social media, then you want to start thinking like, what are the touch points and what's going on with their motivations and goals? What are they thinking at every single one of these? So you can start gearing all of your communications and all of your interactions to make sure you're answering the questions in the things catering to them, basically, to make sure that you're maximizing everything that you're doing. So when you're done here, you can hit Save Persona. You can copy this out to Excel, save it, and then whatever you need to do, if you want to work on it outside of that, or keep it in here. If you go back to the Employee Hub though, and then we go over here to Admin, you'll see that under Customer Profiles, you're all working with the same ones unless somebody's got them private. And if you've got them private, you can just have it among teams, but the public ones are great so that everyone's on the same page. All right, and then that's going to take us to our last button over here, reviews. So this is performance reviews. So everything is all great. We've got KPIs, goals, and all that, but if you don't spend the time to talk with your employees regularly about how these things are going, it's pointless. So you want to hit new review here as well. And let's do this. I'm going to do this from the employee side so you can see how this works, but this works exactly the same way for admin or employee. So if I am the team member Ted, the reason this is grayed out is because as the employee, I can only write my own. If you were an admin, you could pick whoever it is. Let's say my job title is sales and I'm in sales. My leader is admin and the month and day is the 29th. So I'm going to keep this in draft status because as long as this is in draft status, the admin won't see it. So this works both ways. If you want the employee to start it or, and then you take it to the admin meeting and you go through it there, that would work. Or if you want the admin to start it and keep it in draft and get all the notes together until you meet, you can do that and then change it to final once you're ready. So I like to start quarters with different goals. I'm just going to type in goal 1, goal 2, this will be number 2 and this is number 3. But what you should do is name these like I want to read 6 books or whatever it might be. And then here, when you're talking as the employee, these are your goals. So like how much did you do of goal 1? Are you 30%? Are you 50%? Are you 90%? And you've got your overall, and then you can type in some notes here. And these windows do expand to make it easier. So each quarter, this is what you do. My PTO balance, it happens to be 50 because I just got started. And this is where the leader and the team member enter all of the information. So I'm going down here to the team member because that's the team member. That's who I am. And you can change the communication, teamwork, and all of that as the admin if you wish, or you can leave it. But these are the really common things to make sure that you're having conversations on. So like, how is the employee's communication? I'm doing this as the employee, so I'm going to say I'm a great communicator. My teamwork is a 4, problem solving, time management I feel is a 5, technical 4, leadership 3.5. And so you can see as they go through and score, you're getting your average, and then enter some notes. So definitely as an employee, give examples. I said it's this because last month I did this, or whatever it might be, and then you can save those. And then every quarter you can come back in here and see the improvement quarter over quarter. And down here at the bottom, again, you can customize these questions, but you might want to think about like an employee NPS. If you're not sure what that is, I've got lots of information in my blog about that, but it's basically saying, like the customer NPS, how likely are you to recommend working here to a friend or family member. And if they're like, well, a 7, you might want to have a conversation. You might say, well, why? But this brings up the conversation ability, and make sure that things are happening before it's too late to try to reduce turnover and to make sure that employees are working optimally. So again, the whole point of this is to make sure it's triggering conversation. So that is the hope. So you want to answer these questions and ask the questions that will do that for your team. So it's not just going through and just saying yes, 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 done. Make sure you're having the conversations. So anything the company can do better to support, these are just suggestions. Revisions can be here as well. And then employees can sign this. So if I was like, you know what, I'm done, I'm just going to agree to sign. I should have signed Ted, but I'm going to hit sign here. And I needed to change it to final before I signed. But anyway, if it's a final draft, you can sign it, and then your manager can sign it as well when they log in, and then you've got your signatures and your revision. And so like I said, it's really handy because the employee, again, this is where you get it from, right as soon as you log in, can always just click right here. And we didn't save it. But if you would have saved it, it would be here just like all the other ones. And you can go in here and see exactly where you're at, so there's no question. So things really can't slip through the crack because everything is right here. So I'm going to say that probably just about concludes the demo. So I'm going to go back over here to the admin page. I am not seeing much. Oh, you know what? One other thing, help is up here in case you have questions. This is always getting expanded as well. And then kiosk is one last thing. So this is the kiosk punch station. This is really handy if you've got a central computer in the office, or if you've got like an iPad or something that you want to use. So kiosk, or like let's say you've got a single iPad, out in the field. This is where employees can enter their PIN and punch. So the employee ID here for Ted was 1000, so he can punch in, and it captures at the bottom here for just a split second, so that the next person can punch, but to confirm punch happened. And so if I go back here to my admin page, I can see, I can see that this person punched out. So you can see that Ted actually punched out instead of in because he already was in at 1:12. And so again, employees can punch in, out, wherever from their device, from the kiosk. Admins can punch them in and out, or you can click on the pencil and edit. So that concludes the demo. If you're, like I said, if you're looking for a one-stop shop, this is it. This video is current as of February 2026, and there are constantly features being improved and added. So if you have any suggestions, drop them in the comments and let me know. Looking forward to seeing you sign up.